fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
This is very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Layout. What an interesting race it will be. We know how closely these cars pack race, and that will make the strategy oh so important across 50 minutes of the racing tonight. David Haynes and I've got Brad Wingard alongside me. Brad, crunching the numbers on the fuel, looking at the layout of the track, and all the awesome action we've seen the Formula Vee produce. I think this is going to be a good race.
Yeah, good evening, David. This is going to be very unique, I think. We've had lots of close racing in the last couple of weeks, but those have been sprint rounds. So now adding a fuel element into that, it's going to be very spicy. The fuel window is going to be a big talking point over the next 15 minutes, and I'm very excited to see how it plays out.
So this is the track, the full Grand Prix layout of the Nurburgring, like you might be used to, and we've got that Grand Prix style chicane, not the sports car chicane. So that will be definitely one of the many places around the track to keep an eye on for some of the passing. Into turn one is one of them as well, because these cars on a full Grand Prix layout, that slipstream is going to keep them so close together. Pit lane speed, 60 kilometers an hour. That's an important one to keep our eyes on as well, because we're expecting that the likelihood of most drivers needing 2 stops to get to the end of this one. It is a 40% fuel tank restriction that is going to see pit lane be a place of interest. This is the championship standings coming into this round. Joseph De Jesus, championship leader by 32 points ahead of Cam Dance. Chaz Mostert, after his hot streak of 4 clean swept races, is not with us tonight. He's got some, other silly commitments. He signed a contract or something with Walkinshaw. And then Ryan Howe, Michael Skurlock, Lee Partridge, Simon Clayson, Nathan Verney, Reese Gardner, and Stuart Crawford are the top 10 in our championship standings. We've got to have a live update of those throughout the race as well. That could keep things interesting, no doubt. Qualifying has just finished for this 50-minute enduro, and here is how they are going to line up. Defending champ Cam Dance is on the pole from Michael Skurlock, Nathan Verney, Chris Noble, Lee Partridge, and Aaron Freund. That's our top 6. Then throughout the field, got Kirk Broadhurst, Ryan Howe, Matthew Guintini, Michael Harlan, Daniel Hederscheid, and Jeremy Bush.
Behind them, we have Stafford Marsland, Sean McKenzie, Simon Clayson, Aaron Guintini, Michael Harriott, and Stephen Black, rounding out rows 7, 8, 9. Ray Oliver, Theo Taylor, Rick Berger, Stuart Crawford, Ash Knowles, and Max Donnelly, rounding out the top 24.
And the rest of our drivers, it's Vic Bent-Veltzen, Callum Heinrich, Philip Howe, Mick Taylor, and Matthew Joy is the last driver with the qualifying time. Ira Felberg might be going to take the start, and if he does, be 30th. Paul Ward, 31st per the grid. Look at them all beginning to line up on the Grand Prix straight here. This is going to be an interesting run away from the line, some interesting couple laps, and some drivers will be looking to quickly pick off some positions in the pack early goings. There's some others who will be thinking about their fuel consumption, thinking about their strategy, and just wanting to stay in line. And that's water and oil, those two different strategies. They do not mix in this pack, so that is going to be very interesting. 30 plus cars on the grid here for 50 minutes. There's the format once again if you need it. 50 minutes of racing, 40% fuel tank restriction, and at the race pace of these cars, 50 minutes is going to be give or take 20 laps. The revs rising, all of our Formula V's are ready to get into action for the first enduro of the season. They are away now, and it's typically pretty even start from everyone. Michael Skurlock from second looks like he could almost challenge Cam Dance. That's Ryan Howe going all the way to the inside in towards turn number 1 as it's 4 wide in that section of the pack. Howe gets on the brakes a little early, and he's still trying to get down the inside of Freund there, and that has caused no dramas right at the front of the pack. Howe's gone for a little spin and is now going again, and our 30-plus field appears to be making their way through the arena section cleanly for the first time. Cam Dance in the lead.
Yeah, that turn 1 at the Nurburgring is notorious for how wide it is, and these cars being so small has just enhanced that. But so far, it seems like a clean start. We haven't had any major incidents minus that start at spin. All cars coming down through the S's now towards that very, very banked hairpin at the very bottom of the circuit, and the uphill climb in these cars is a lot harder than you expect it to be. Most cars that race around here, like GT3 cars, touring cars, Formula 1 cars, they breeze up the hill. It's a bit more of a struggle in these cars, so the draft effect around here is going to be very substantial, going up through the Schumacher S's and into the left-hander in the middle of the circuit. So that's going to be very interesting to see them come through there for the first time.
Bowled a big wide there, Daniel Hederscheid, as we rode on board with him, super deep into the braking zone at the Dunlop quarter at the far end, and took the long trip around. Good view there of the whole field, though, about halfway around lap number 1. Cam Dance still in the lead, but is that where you want to be right now? It's like being out in front of the pack in Tour de France. Maybe you don't want to do it. Freund around. He's facing the wrong way in the runoff, and no one else appears to be getting tangled in that. A lot of paved runoff there, so Freund is going to put the throttle down, rejoin, but he's going to be pretty well at the very back of the field here.
Yeah, the only car behind him at the moment after his restart, Philip Howe and Ray Oliver. So he is well down the order from 6th down to 29th, sorry. So yeah, it's a big difference. And this Grand Prix chicane surprisingly doesn't get used very often in iRacing events. It's mainly just the Grand Prix races that seem to be broadcasts on Sunday morning. So you don't see that very often. So good to see it get some love in these very, very petite Formula cars that we have here. Not quite Formula 1 cars, but the action that they're producing so far is very enjoyable. And that's only the end of lap 1 of what we're assuming to be a 20-lap race.
Well, it wouldn't be much of a braking zone at all for these cars on the sports car layout. So the Grand Prix chicane gives them just a little more track to work with, a little more challenge. Cam Dance still leading in our top 6, starting to get away, as you can tell. Then Ryan Howe leads up the very next pack. Stuart Crawford has spun it. Oh, and that's not a great rejoin either. It's caused some problems to some of the drivers coming past, but no one actually made additional contact, and he's gotten himself facing the correct way again. Pretty moderate track conditions, actually, 33 Celsius, so not super cold, not super hot. It's pretty Goldilocks right now.
Well, you would hope for it to be a bit Goldilocks. Obviously, we are located in the Goldilocks zone. We see a pass for the lead, which is something I wasn't expecting to see this early in the race. That's Michael Skurlock going for the lead, and Chris Noble is right there as well. Cam Dance hung out a bit wide, but he will have the inside of the run through the Schumacher S's up the hill. It's not a massive challenge for these cars, because like most of the corners on this track, you don't really have to brake for a lot of them. This one especially is just pin the foot to the floor up the hill, get as much draft as you can. And Michael Skurlock going for that move so early on was quite surprising. We were talking about it in the pre-race show about, because the fuel tank is restricted to 40%, so that's 8 liters. It's about 9 laps of fuel, but if you can be in the draft, get that 10th lap, you're in a really, really good position for the end of the race. So for Skurlock to go for that move so early is quite surprising. And now Cam Dance just sitting there in the draft, hopefully biding his time, but we don't really think Cam is we don't not think of Cam as a conservative driver, but he's also not going to be sat there and slowed down if he can help.
Live points there without Joseph DeJesus or Chaz Mostert on the grid. Things are looking pretty peachy for Cam Dance if he can stay in that lead pack. Behind those, Mikey Harland and Daniel Hederscheid and Sean McKenzie as they come through the final corner. And that is problems for Ash Knowles, problems for others there as well. It's looking like the curbs can be pretty vicious in these Formula Vs. They can bottom out pretty easily. And for Knowles, I think he's put that on the toe hook. For Matthew Joy, he's going to do the 3-point turn to get facing the right way around. Now, here's Hedderscheid coming around the outside of Haaland in towards turn 1. Now try to cross back over under, almost contact between teammates, and the narrow line from Aaron Guintini. Seems like it worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was too much damage to Knowles' car there. He did vault over that first part of the chicane. Of course, they are quite big, like Grand Prix chicane anti-cut curbs. Even here, they're relatively flat compared to most chicanes. They are still quite big in these cars, so he has towed for the pits, which is quite surprising, but obviously because there is that 1 lap window of a 1-stop or a 2-stop, he could pull this back depending on that tow length. If he takes his fuel now, could pull that off and only have to do that 1 extra stop to make it to the end. So he's not completely out of it now, but because of the tow, he is losing quite a bit of time in the pits.
So the state of the race is still our top 6 getting away from everyone else. And then there's this Daniel Hedderscheid pack here, and you can see right in the middle there, Ryan Howe is 2 seconds away from the lead pack, 2-3 seconds in front of these guys, and he's running his own race in 7th, but not necessarily where you might want to be at this point. A little adrift, not catching the leaders. Broadhurst is one of the drivers I'm interested in. What is he going to do in 6th? He's just been sitting in the slipstream all race long so far. And Chris Noble's in 3rd. We ride on board with him. You can see the revs. You can see the shift lights from this perspective. It's another driver happy to be picking up the slipstream and the tow as they go along here.
Yeah, nice and comfortable there in 3rd position. He does have Nathan Verney right behind him, so he's not completely relaxed right now, but sitting behind Cam Dance is definitely not a bad place to be, and they're still in contact with Michael Skurlock in the lead, so they're all running similar lap times, not too much difference, but still saving that extra little bit of fuel per lap is going to make a big difference come pit stops in about 6 laps time.
Yeah, the next pack further down, we've got Rick Berger, Stephen Black, Vic Bent-Veltzen, and Theo Taylor here. And Rick Berger has been moving up through the field so far in this race. Started 21st, now running 17th. We've got Sean McKenzie on the pit lane. Is this for damage? Is this to get some clean air? Or is this a super aggressive strategy? Interesting to see how much fuel McKenzie's going to be able to take on board with that stop.
Just went back through the lap, and it doesn't look like any damage for McKenzie. He went for a pass through the middle S's. Sorry, I forget the name. Just after the Schumacher S's, and he went for a move, didn't work. So I think maybe he's come in to try and get out of some.
It's too long of a stop for fuel, racing. And there's no tyres going on, so there's probably something else at play for Sean McKenzie. I think Guintini's on the lane as well, but still earlier than we would expect most, considering this is a race entirely built around the fuel strategy. It's not a whole lot of advantage to pitting early. Up front, Michael Skurlock with a couple more car lengths than we've seen before on Cam Dance, and then a couple more car lengths between him and Chris Noble than we've been used to. This is Lee Partridge as he pedals along in 5th, trying to stay in touch with that top 4 that is just past that 1 second window. Really hoping to close that back up, because otherwise the leaders are going to skip away from him. Ryan Howe has been bringing himself maybe just a little bit back into picture if he can get onto the slipstream of Kirk Broadhurst. All hangs in the balance for who's still in contention for the win. How many drivers can hold on to that draft of the leader? Skurlock has some pretty strong pace at the moment.
Yeah, he definitely does. He did set the fastest lap of the race last lap at 28.8. Is not a bad lap indeed. He was, a 10th quicker than Cam Dance, so there's not a whole lot in it as well at all. Sorry, Cam Dance obviously does have that draft, but I'm curious to know how much, if any, fuel saving Dance is managing at the moment, because obviously with the speed of these cars, a lifting coast is quite difficult. Very, very close past the chicane there. between Max Donnelly, that one was. Very, very close quarters, but no contact, so very good driving there. But
Ryan Howe's decided he's not going to catch the pack in front, so he's on the pit lane. And yeah, you can only lift and coast into a braking zone, and not many things on a Grand Prix track are a braking zone for these Formula V's as they top out at about 150, 160 kilometers an hour. It's a different and unique strategy, and definitely commits to the two-stop for Ryan Howe. More excitement other places. For example, Friend on the fight back after that spin we saw very early on, repping a proper Formula V livery with the big People's Car logo on the nose and in some other places.
yeah,
And just further in front of that as well, more side by side, Donnelly, and it's actually Berger and Stephen Black.
yeah, not so much 2x2 now, but Black is still in that draft. He doesn't look like he's going for a move here. Still stays line astern. Not, I mean, it is an opportunity to pass, but if anything, you're going to want the run down into the hairpin, nice and banked, so you can carry more speed through there. If you can get on the inside, it hooks up so nicely. In the draft in these cars, it's going to make that move even more vital. He sits in the draft, stays in the draft, so maybe he's trying to get that run up the hill. It is a bit of a struggle up the hill, so a draft going up through those S's is going to make a world of difference compared to no draft at all. So maybe a smart move, maybe saving fuel, but I think that's going to be the talking point of the whole race, I think, until about 2 minutes to go is going to be saving fuel and staying in the draft. But I guess that's run of the mill for these cars, really.
On board with Bernie in fourth. A little bit of a checkup begins to happen halfway down the straight here, and he really rolls out of the throttle big time, hundreds of meters before that braking zone. Holds it in third through the chicane, about what you'd expect, bouncing it across in the right places. And there's Skurlock going for pit entry or not. Might have had a slowdown through the chicane there, got all the way out of the way to give it up. And that puts Cam Dance up in front. Here's a move. It's Donnelly, Berger, and Black all through the final chicane. A tight chicane it can be as well. Slipstream on a Grand Prix layout really, really keeps these Formula V's together. Vic Bent Veltson, 09, or I think it was the 9. He started very deep in the field, so he's up 8 positions so far. Now he's on the back of Stephen Black and Theo Taylor, but maybe also thinking about his fuel consumption as well. Down towards turn 1. He doesn't look down the inside just yet. He's going to roll out, stay on the racing line, and we all get treated to a visor full of smoke. That's really in deep, though, from Stephen Black.
Yeah, very deep through there indeed. He's still pointing in the same direction. Hits the apex of turn 2. Sorry, got my corners mixed up for a second there. Michael Skurlock is now leading the charge for the 4th place pack rather than the lead pack. He's only a second off of Nathan Boney in front of him, so he did lose a bit of time to that slowdown at the chicane. It is very easy to do in these cars, especially if you don't run the Grand Prix out. It's very deep.
Chris Noble to the lead down the inside of Cam Dance, so might have seen Dance rolling out of the throttle big time and decided against it, and Skurlock dropping back from the lead into 4th, bridged that gap to that next group of cars, Lee Partridge and Kirk Broadhurst. 6 cars for the lead again, and we're starting to see a lot of the games around who leads and who burns the most fuel. Chris Noble's gone to the lead, and if he wants to give it up, well, the drivers behind him don't seem to want to take it. Max Donnelly's gone for a loop at the far end of the circuit. Doesn't appear to have caused him any damage, but it is going to cost him a bit of time.
Yeah, it was a kind of a nothing. Oh, was it a nothing spin? Was there contact there? Nope, that was a nothing spin. Just went too hot into the hairpin and then snap oversteer caught him out. But still pointing the same way. There wasn't any contact with Staffan Marsland that I thought there might have been. But he's now down in 22nd position, so he's definitely kicking himself because he was in a very good position before that.
So Lee Partridge will have been very, very thankful for Michael Skurlock's slowdown in this part of the lap not long ago, because it's brought him and Kirk Broadhurst back up to the lead. And there's also a little bit of that gamesmanship going on first and second. Look at the kind of closing speed Partridge gets. And then, half throttle, half pedaling it all the way from there down in towards the braking zone. This almost seems like all of them know what's up with the fuel strategy, and none of them really want to lead, though Chris Noble has been tricked into following that job for the moment. See, Skurlock gives up another position behind Partridge. So Partridge now up into fourth. Skurlock has slotted in between car we ride on board with right now and Kirk Broadhurst in sixth. But this onboard, more so than any of the off-board static or TV cameras, gives you an idea for how much fuel saving these guys are doing and how unwilling they are to pass in this pack right now, because you see the kind of closing speed they get to the car in front and then off the throttle.
Like watching the Indy 500 play out, but on a road course. No one wants to lead that race, and everyone behind is like, thank you, I'll take that free fuel. But now we're on a Grand Prix layout rather than a 4 kilometer square oval with minimal banking. It's probably more banking at the hairpin than there is at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Don't quote me on that. Just visually it looks like it, but it's really interesting. It's why we love watching these cars race. It's really, really unique, and the racing it produces is fantastic, and there's battles up and down the field. And we watch Dan Hedersheet behind Mikey Harlan now coming out of the Schumacher S's. They are in 7th and 8th, not too far off the lead pack. It is about 8 seconds, so it is a bit off the lead pack, but they're happy where they are, just getting the laps ticked over. There's about a lap and a half into a pit stop, so we're really going to see those gains coming from the draft. End of lap 9, start of lap 10. If you've been in the draft the entire time, your magic lap number is lap 10. If you can make it there, then you're much bigger shoe-in for the race than someone who's done 8 or 9 laps, or has pitted on lap 2 or 3 like we have seen a couple of cars do already.
Of course, it's a 50-minute race, so when there's 25 minutes left, that's the halfway point. Anyone who pits before halfway is definitely committing themselves to a 2-stop strategy. Plenty of battling throughout the mid-pack here, and that's Aaron Freund going for pit lane from 15th. Got Stefan Marsland, Matthew Harriet, Ray Oliver, Theo Taylor all around this pack in the middle here, while Clayson and Rick Berger are trying to break away as the last cars inside the top 10. And your biggest mover at the moment is Rick Berger, up 11th now from 21st on the grid into the top 10. That's a decent move through the field, but it's going to start running out of cars to slipstream off of, and a little bit more clear air in front of him before he catches anyone else he can pass at the moment.
Yeah, it's easy to say that, he's had that draft from the cars in front of him to make those moves, but so is pretty much everyone else on this racing track, so they can easily draft back past him. So the fact that he's up 10 positions, Ira Felberg is also up 10 positions from 30th, so very well done by him. But it's not as easy as, okay, we'll use Formula One for example. They have DRS, they can pass down the straights easily enough, but then passing in the corners is a lot harder, whereas in these cars, you can draft down the straights and you can easily go side by side through the corners, and then you don't have to worry about DRS zones or anything like that to give you a draft, because these cars naturally have such a big draft because they're slower cars and they're so streamlined. They punch that hole in the air a lot easier. So it's not quite as easy as I've been in the draft longer than you, I win. There's a lot more to that than, just a simple draft and I'm in front and then rinse repeat.
Vernie started third. He's third right now. Camp Dance leaves a little bit of a path through the gravel runoff there, but doesn't really seem to have hurt him much of anything at all. Love watching this rev counter in the dash for Vernie, because he starts slowing down or bleeding off a little bit of speed quite early on the way into these chicanes. No one else going for pit lane in this pack. They wouldn't want to yet. There'll be 8 laps completed at the end of this, and they're trying to get maybe 2 more. So who pits from the lead pack at the end of this lap versus the end of next lap could be very, very important for who can do this race on just the one lap. Look at this. Speed's still increasing, but then by about here on the straight, we've maxed out. And at what point does he start rolling into the corner? Still 100, 200 meters, but not 500 meters like sometimes when he's a bit closer to the car up in front.
Ray Oliver has just entered the pit, so that's a lot earlier than I expected with Ben Zvelt. Can you pronounce that one for me? Thank you, sorry, I always trip over that one. And Max Donnelly behind them as well, so quite a few early pitters. A lot earlier than we were expecting. We were expecting end of lap 9, and they're pitting at the beginning of lap 9, so maybe they've just consolidated that two-stop strategy.
I'm not super surprised as we watch a replay here of Mikey Harland, pull over? Problems changing gear maybe? Did he come through turn 1 and then just not be able to upshift? But we might have seen some of these drivers recognise they're only going to do 9 laps, recognise that everyone around them is therefore only going to do 9 laps, and just try to pit 1 lap early to do something different to the pack and the battle that they found themselves amongst. Just, recognizing their fate a lap before it happened and choosing to do something different, as it remains a top 6 battle for the lead. From Kirk Broadhurst at the end of this train, as you can see, it's another 8 seconds till you get to best of the rest, Daniel Hederscheid and Aaron Guintini and Mikey Harland. So it's looking like your winner's probably going to come from this particular pack, but pit entry at the end of this lap is where your eyeballs are going to have to be trained, because everyone here would appear to be trying to do the 10 laps from the first stint to get to the halfway point of the race, and therefore only do a 1 stop. And Chris Noble is leading them on a little wild goose chase down this back straight, as Dance opted to follow in his slipstream and Nathan Verney stuck on the regular racing line. Now to the pit entry. No from all of our top 6. They have been saving fuel all through this first stint. The problem is going to be, can they do the same through the second stint if they're not part of the pack? Expect a lot of other drivers from behind to pit this time, though.
As we see, Daniel Hederscheid does not pit. Mikey Harland does. Aaron Guintini does. Simon Clayson doesn't. Stafford Marsland does. Matthew Harriott does. Theo Taylor does. Steve Black does. Ray Oliver is on his outlap. Jeremy Bush is in. Vic Ben Veltzen, did I get that right?
Best you've ever done.
I'll get it eventually, won't I? Ira Felberg is managing to stay out for his 10th lap. I think everyone else is pretty much in the pits or has already pitted, except for our top 7. So on 10th and 11th, Simon Clayson and Rick Berger are really the only ones inside the top 15, apart from that lead pack, that haven't pitted yet.
Lead car to have pitted, Ryan Howe. So the wording on the graphic says. And what's his pace been looking like? He's been in the 229s recently, and that is, pushing it. That's quick pace. That is top 10 pace. But he's definitely committed to a 2-stop here. So all the drivers behind him who've pitted before the halfway point, he's definitely ahead of them on track and on strategy. It's the drivers in front of him who are making it on a 1-stop got to worry about. But it looks like Rick Berger is running out of fuel, and he's a long way from the pits as well. Tried to stay out the 10 laps like everyone else, but that is... the thing about doing soapbox derby in the Formula V is that you've got to start on top of a hill, not have a hill between you and the pit entry, and this is costly for Rick Berger. And that is, it's quicker to tow at this speed.
Yeah, looks like he's going to pull over on the exit of the Schumacher S's, maybe?
Onto the lead of the race, into the final chicane. Noble and Dance mega lifted out before pit entry. Verney from third has been saving so much fuel, he powered past them, and he's leading them all into pit lane, except, what on earth? Cam Dance is staying out for another lap. Is this a strategy masterstroke or is this a problem? But look at the time on the clock. 25 minutes to go exactly as everyone is on the pit lane, bar Cam Dance. So is he going to be in a Rick Berger situation at the end of this one? Or is there something we don't know? Everyone else coming into the pit lane now, and that's going to include Ira Felberg, who was the last car out on track not to have stopped. Ryan Howe gets around him right now as well, and Howe has already made Ryan Howe has made a stop so far. So it's not looking bad for a top 10 for Ryan Howe, even on the 2-stop strategy. Everyone but Cam Dance in the pit lane. What's going on there?
That's really thrown a spanner in our works because, like you said, even if you make it to lap 10 on the first stop, that doesn't necessarily equate to a 10-stop second stint. So if Cam Dance can manage that 11th stint, he can go balls to the wall in that second stint and he will make the end no matter what. You can't really burn 8.9 laps of fuel.
On stop for Nathan Verney. Don't know what's going on there, but that's odd because he led the pack in towards pit lane, and then we're riding on board with Ryan Howe, and he is going to be joker amongst the pack of all of these because he's not thinking about fuel saving. All the rest of them are. He's on a different strategy to all of these guys that he's now intertwined with. He'll be going full beans, and they'll be thinking, goodness gracious, I hope there's only 10 laps left in this race. If the pace is quick enough, it could go 11. Don't think it will, seeing as Dance is still going to have to lose time going through the pit lane, and we were almost exactly at 25 minutes left when he crossed the line.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The lead pack before the pit stops, like lap 9, they were all doing 2-minute, like high 2-minute 30s. Ryan Howe is just blasting along mid 2:29, so that pace difference, and he's going to get the draft from them, is going to be instrumental. I don't know if it's going to be enough to cover his second stop, but if this pack does need to stop a second time, if they do only get 9 laps of fuel, or if it does go to that 11th lap, Ryan Howe is in the box seat, which was not quite what we were expecting at the start of the race. Cam Dance is in the pits now by a stroke of magic, using some New Zealand black magic to get that 11th lap, but he's done it, and maybe he is thinking that this will go for an 11th, like a 21st lap. I don't quite think it's that simple, but getting that 11th lap means that he can go absolutely as fast as he wants to go for the rest of the race.
Yep, indeed. Here's the other pack, currently led by Chris Noble. Interesting to note, he's got his own teammate, Ryan Howe, in this group, who could lead them if he needed to. So there's all the rest of the field. Here's Cam Dance rolling from his pole position pit box. He's going to be out in front, but only just. I think everyone else is probably going to slot into his slipstream. But if he can keep them 2 seconds back off him and he can go full pelt while they can't, then that puts him in a very, very competitive position.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And he does have Matthew Guintini, sorry, in front of him. So he will get a little bit of a draft down the straight. Obviously, Cam will try and get past as soon as he can, but I'm sure he'll use some of that draft while he can to help gap the cars behind. It is still sitting at around 2 seconds, which is outside of that magic draft number. So Cam's lap, his in lap, was absolutely phenomenal as well. He managed to save that extra lap and still put in a fast in lap time. Has paid dividends. He's got a 2-second gap. I don't know how he's done it, but he's worked his magic again, and it's why we love watching him race. It's completely flipped it on its head.
Yeah, no doubt. He's 2.2 seconds clear of everyone else at the moment. We'll have to check in with that lead pack later. Here's the next pack battle out on track, and it's from 11th. It's Ray Oliver and Vic Veltzen and Stafford Marsland and Theo Taylor, and they go side by side for that spot. But Veltzen is going to steal it away, and that continues his charge up through the field. Now 14 positions gained. Everyone in this group, though, is going to need another pit stop. But Veltzen gets real wide, picks up a bit of that Formula V understeer on the exit, and everyone else slots in behind him. Flat chat for these guys up the hill through the Schumacher S and through the chicane. I'm excited for that Netflix documentary soon, and you see that the fact that they're flat out through that chicane makes it almost one really long straight down towards the next braking zone. Down the inside, taking a look, Oliver is going to be in 12th, but then immediately they're on to the next straight where they can slipstream and battle off each other. It's all gloves off for these guys now that they're committed to 2 stops. It's everywhere else where there might still be some fuel saving afoot, and Ryan Howe is going to cover off his final pit stop to get him from the end, removes him from that pack. I would have liked to have seen him and Chris Noble maybe work together to try to catch Cam Dance, given that they were teammates, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen with Howe now pitting.
It's a very interesting call from Ryan Howe, because it would have been a 2-car battle with, 2-team battle, I believe, with Chris Noble, Ryan Howe, and then Michael Skurlock and... No, I'm getting my teams confused. I apologize, but there was a second car in there, but I can't remember who it was. But anyway, Chris Noble, of course. No,
This battle's back on though.
Yes,
to the apex for Ray Oliver. He gets some positions, and Bent Veltzen, who were just bigging him up, he's gone and lost 2 in this pack battle. And now Ray Oliver might be getting away. Stafford Marsland holding up Bent Veltzen through this chicane here, where you can be all the way to the left and you can carry the speed through the right hander. It puts you in good stead coming towards the next chicane. Pack of 4 carrying on here, and they've been doing laps with this battle in the 231s, 232s. Bush, who's made contact with him, and where's that? In turn 1, 3-4 cars around. Now Paul Ward facing the wrong way in turn 1. Take a look there, because target fixation sets in for these cars sometimes. A driver will be spun around in the middle of the track, and in trying to avoid them, the other drivers lift off the throttle, spin, and hit him as well. So this is one of them. Meanwhile, down at turn 1, that little crest right at the apex catches out 1 car, catches out 2 cars. Someone else clips him on their way around. So 3 cars around in the first sector, but 3 of those 4 entirely unrelated to each other.
Yeah, it's kind of like riding a motorbike, is you want to look at where you go, and if there's a car spun in front of you, you look at that car and that's where you end up going. And unfortunately, these cars are very twitchy, both on and off throttle, and if you come out of the throttle to try and avoid it, that's when you get that unrelated but semi-related spinner like 50 meters up the road. But this battle pack is still unrelenting. This is for second place, with Michael Skurlock leading the charge down into turn 1 to start lap 14 of 20.
And they've gone and lost another second or so to Cam Dance here as well, now 3.3. And it's got to be because this next pack is still kind of thinking about the fuel, which is no longer a concern for Dance. He took on the same amount of fuel at that stop as everyone else, but it was a lap later. So now he's only got to cut that cake into 9 slices instead of 10. Each one of those laps is going to be a little bit richer.
Yeah, Cam Dance was half a second a lap faster that lap, and has been quite consistently, as Vic Ben Veltzen comes into the pits for his second stop.
I can hear you trying.
I really listened last time you said it, and I nailed it. So
that's the work of a pro.
But we got there in the end. But yes, he's in for his second stop. He will be coming out in around 19th position. So that'll be him done for the rest of the race, with about 5.5 laps to go now. As we've got
that's wide from a Guintini, but it's going to be out of the way of second, third, and fourth, depending on how he rejoins. He stays well off the track for Matthew Guintini, and he might have scared himself. He might have scared the leaders, but he has not impeded that group. The next group, though, Oliver and Marsland, a battle for the ages, inseparable for a whole chunk of laps now. Ben Veltzen was in this pack, and he went for a spin somewhere somehow. So now he's dropped well back off him as well.
He pitted.
Oh, he spun and then he pit.
Yes.
So interesting work with the slipstream here on board with Marsland as he wants in and then wants out and then wants in again, like any good domestic cat. But then he sets his line up well to maybe cut back 5 laps into the stint here for Marsland. So fuel shouldn't be a concern until a little bit later. And that's got Theo Taylor still following along just in the slipstream. The long shot of the leaders, though, you see Cam Dance dips over the crest while Partridge, Noble, Skurlock and Kirk Broadhurst all stay in a very fuel-efficient line.
Yeah, Kirk Noble, Kirk Broadhurst, sorry, at the back of this queue is probably in the best position of them all. He's still within touching distance if one of them gets a slowdown or they misses an apex or miss out on the draft. So he's in that zone, but he has no one behind him, so he can lift and coast as much as he damn pleases. As we see, Lee
Partridge has gone for a bit there in turn 3. He was kind of battling with Noble for that second place. They'd started to get a little bit more elbows out. So let's take Virtual Racing School replay. Take another look at it. So Noble takes a narrow entry. Skurlock might have been Partridge might have been looking in his mirrors at that time. The rear breaks loose on him and it flicks in the opposite direction into that paved runoff. And that's going to cost him big time because he's not only lost nearly 8 seconds or so to that leading pack, he's now all alone on a 10-lap stint, and that will make the fuel-saving task even harder, and you'll struggle to catch that time out as well. So Dance leading, and then just a pack of 3 following.
Yeah, there is that pack of 3 as they come up out of this Schumacher S's for the 15th time, and fuel will definitely be on their mind. We are watching Ira Felberg in 16th place. He is 3 and a bit seconds behind Harriet in front, but he's very closely accompanied by Nathan Verney and Nathan Verney, yes, right behind him. So he's not quite out of the woods. They do have bit of traffic in between.
What's interesting here, though, is Harriet's going to be on a 2-stop strategy. Meanwhile, Felberg and Verney are trying to make the 1-stop work. They pitted a lap later than Harriet, so they probably want to stick with Matthew Harriet in the slipstream just to save them their fuel. And then with 2 laps to go, when Harriet has to pit, they'll carry on and pick up that position. But still with the fuel saving in mind, might not try to attack too early. So they're just using Harriet as their pace car a little bit. And is that a lap down Guintini with them? It is. I think that's Matthew Guintini following along. As I say that, though, Ira Felberg doesn't need the meal ticket anymore from Matthew Harriet, and he's going to try to jump past him. Here's Aaron Friend coming for his final stop, hitting from 8th or 9th position, and could well be up against Ryan Howe in that sort of lead car to have made the second pit stop, as that's Howe right behind this battle, who we know has already made the second stop.
Yeah, and Max Donnelly and Matthew Harriet coming in as well. So as soon as Ira got past, Matthew waved his white flag into the pits for his second stop. I was going to comment that Harriet might be thinking, well, Cam Dance managed 11 laps, but I could try and manage 11 laps. That would get him to the end, but clearly once you commit to that second stop, it is very difficult to make the long stint work. So you think, oh yeah, what's 1 extra lap? That should be pretty easy. But when you're doing 2.5-minute lap times, that's a monumental effort in a car that is as sensitive to its environment as this one is.
Yeah, you've got to start that 11-lap stint knowing you're doing an 11-lap stint. You can't come out of the blocks sprinting for 100 meter and then decide you're going to carry on as if it was a marathon. You'll have used too much too early. You need to leave the blocks knowing it's a marathon, trying to pace yourself the whole way. Ashley Knowles rejoins onto the track after a bit of a spin there. Did not see any damage on that locked on car. Ashley Knowles from Brisbane still not been in touch with any of that homebrew for me, and my fridge is bare and I hear he's full of it, so hopefully he'll rectify that situation at some point. Is this out of fuel?
No, it was
recovering from a spin.
It wasn't so much a spin as it was a elegant slide. It was a big angle, but as soon as he caught the gravel, it straightened up a little bit. So lost a little bit of time, but not as much as a full spin did Ira. So there was no contact there, thankfully, but it looked quite good. It was just very, very slow, unfortunately.
Jay to Google some royalty-free Eurobeat, because right in the middle there, he had it right until it slid up into the gravel, and then the style points began to evaporate. My estimate, my predictor says 4 to go. 4 more laps to go, which would make this a 20-lap race. Cam Dance, that lead has just extended and extended and extended in this final stint. He made his bed in that first stint by going 11 laps, and that just set him up to be able to go full attack, full beans, full rich, pull away from second, third, and fourth as more drivers come through the pit lane that are on the 2-stop strategy to complete their second stop. This is Ray Oliver looking for his crew, and I wish they'd animate the pit crew grabbing that fuel pump and stretching it all the way over to fill up a Formula V.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to watch indeed. Let's go to replay again. We are with Michael Skirl, I believe.
Chris Noble's gotten away, so that's Skurlock and Broadhurst, and Skurlock is going to have a bit of a problem?
A problem or a tactical lap by? I don't think it was a slow down.
All of these three are still aiming for 10 laps on the stint, which was a struggle for some. You remember, we saw some drivers out of fuel after 9.5 laps right at the start. So Skurlock must still be thinking very, very carefully about that fuel number. Marsland and Theo Taylor, 2 drivers who are headed towards another pit stop in the remaining laps, but at the moment battling over 9th and 10th. With the approximate delta on a pit stop might put them around 13th or 14th, but then of course there's some other drivers behind them. Need to take another stop like Harland. So this could still be a battle for just out of the top 10.
Yeah, Ray Oliver is in 14th place. He did pit from around 11th, so that is a big gap, even for that second stop, which you wouldn't quite think it was, but these battles are slowly starting to fade away as we get later into this race. Obviously, Cam Dance is completely checked out. Chris Noble's starting to check out. Then there were 2 of Michael Skurlock and Kirk Broadhurst. I think that's going to stay as a 2 for the rest of the race, as is this battle on screen right now of Theo Taylor and Stefan Marsland. They are still inseparable. 17, nearly 18 laps later, so these guys will need one more stop. They're running very low on laps, so probably end of this lap I would almost put money on them coming in, maybe lap 19 if they're really good in this second stint. But like you said, you've got to commit to that lap that 10 lap strategy on lap 1, and you can't really make it up halfway through.
Indeed, 6 minutes left, 3 to go for these guys, 3 to go for the leaders. Chris Noble has actually taken a second or so back out of Cam Dance, which is interesting to see. Then it sort of starts to trend back out in the other direction there. But Noble, the question is, does he still have Broadhurst and Skurlock on his tail? It's just over a second. Now it's just under a second. He was almost shaking them off and going full attack.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to both bridge the gap and close it once you're in a draft. If you can carry that extra little bit of speed through the corners, being such momentum heavy cars, it is so easy to break that gap. But if you're within a second at the start of a straight, it'll be well less than a second by the end of it. And Broadhurst is within that second right now. It is half a second going through that kink on the way up towards the chicane. So not close enough for a move, but he's going to be reaping the benefits of the draft to the maximum on this lap. Obviously, these guys did lap pretty much bang on halfway, so they should be fine to make it to the end. But if they have one lap where they use, you know, 20 mil of fuel too much, then that's going to be a bit of an uphill climb to get that 10th crucial lap out of the tank.
Lapped car currently between Cam Dance in first and Chris Noble in second. Could that bridge the gap? Meanwhile, Cam Dance was about a second off on the last lap, 2 seconds off on this lap. If Noble gets into that slipstream, gets a free second and slingshots past, he could still close in a little bit on Dance. What was 5.5 seconds is now down to 3.9, and Noble is still going to pick up a slipstream at some point on this lap that might, if he times it right and the cards fall right, just give him an extra half a second for free somewhere on this lap. There's still hope for some of these, as with 2 to go, Stafford Marsland and Theo Taylor pit, and I think we're going to see a few other cars come in for a second pit stop at this point. The cars that did 9 laps on the first stint, that have just done 9 now, are going to be due a final stop, a final splash for 2 laps of fuel. Oh, no such help for Noble as he shoots on past, but he is now only 3 seconds away from Dance.
Yeah, he got a little bit of a draft. Probably wasn't quite as much as he was hoping for, but at the same time, he wasn't exactly slowed up. So there's both pros and cons to that. And I said I'd nearly put money on those cars coming in on lap 18. I probably should have, but like clockwork,
You haven't got any money to put on it anyway.
I mean, that is also true, but I'd have more if I did. But Mikey Harland is also in, and I'm not quite sure who else will be coming in. All of those that would be in have pretty much run their course, except I believe Aaron Guintini will probably be the last car to pit, minus maybe some of the top 5 or 6 if they didn't quite save enough fuel. But I think that's pretty much most pit stops done, unless some crazy thing happens out of the blue and we get a fuel burst or
Simon Clayson runs out of fuel from 8th because he's been all alone for a while. He's trying to make 10 laps on the final stint, and that's tough without any slipstream help. We were also looking at the battle for the final spot in the top 10. Nathan Verney come from 3rd on the grid back into 10th after a long pit stop. Might have been speeding on the lane, but I wouldn't dare confirm that. Versus Ira Felberg, who came from 30th on the grid, currently up into 11th. So they've come from entirely opposite ends of the grid to now be battling over 10th place.
Yeah, really. Oh, Lee Partridge is in the lane now as well. So not quite what I was expecting. But maybe he was kind of in a little bit too much of no man's land.
So this should be the start of the final lap for Cam Dance, but no confirmation on that just yet. And the iRacing race control can sometimes be a bit finicky, flip-flop one way or the other, how many laps we get out of a timed race. Is this the start of the final lap, or is there another to go after that? All indications for me would say this should have been the final lap.
Yeah, you would think so. With 56 seconds left on the clock, Cam Dance is coming down to the hairpin. So unless he, borrows a VW Beetle Rallycross engine, I don't quite think he's going to get back to the line before that time runs out. But we have seen stranger things happen in the past, and if we do go for that 21st lap,
Well, I'm seeing some
Everything
guys
that
battle like it is the last lap. I'm watching Kirk Broadhurst side by side with Michael Skurlock for third. That looked like they thought there might be a checkered flag at the end of this one. How much are they going to attack Chris Noble? And can Noble close up the 2.5 seconds to Cam Dance out in front? Time is about to expire, and Dance is still a long way from the finish line. Here's Noble trying to go all the way to the right-hand side to break the slipstream, but Broadhurst and Skurlock are going to jump right in there. This is the kind of stuff that would tell you it should be the checkered flag right now coming up. 1.9 seconds away from Cam Dance they are now, as down the inside goes Broadhurst on Skurlock. Skurlock jumps all the way across the chicane, and I think that's going to be a slowdown for him. Noble might also have a slowdown, both of them in front of him. Cam Dance is going to be looking for the checkered flag right now to take the Enduro win, and he's going towards the checkered flag like it's out for him. Broadhurst, the only driver to go cleanly through the chicane, is going to get second. Skurlock serves a slowdown and takes third, and Chris Noble looks like he is on fumes for fourth. Still some other battles deeper in the pack.
Yeah, I just went on board with Chris Noble just then, and he was struggling as we see Heddersheet and Clayson come around the final corner for the last time. They are nose to tail and very close for them, but ultimately that is Clayson winning out there. Further back, we have
We've
Ward
got Vernie and Felberg. We've got Guintini and Oliver. We've still got Donnelly, Harriet, and Vic Bent Veltzen to come as well. This is Felberg just dropping off Vernie a little bit right at the end here. Both of them doing the 10-lap stint. But, whoa, that's no fuel left for Vernie. But I think the lines come up just in time to save him from Ira Felberg. Now, Aaron Guintini and Ray Oliver, both of them on a two-stop strategy. I don't think fuel's going to be a concern here, unless it is for Guintini as he slows down a little bit towards the end. Donnelly, Harriet, Bent Veltzen, two-stop strategy guys are coming towards the checkered flag in that order, and Donnelly is going to beat Harriet and Bent Veltzen.
Sean McKenzie comes across the line, and we've got a nice battle pack again further back with Mikey Harland, Rick Berger, and Mick Taylor slightly behind. We've got some lap cars in there as well. That's Jeremy Bush, Callum Hyrick, and Stephen Black just behind them. They were 2 laps down, but still paddling for position. So just because you're not on the lead lap doesn't mean that your race is any less significant. These guys battling right to the end of theirs.
Well, what an interesting race it was. Let's look at the results after 50 minutes of the Nurburgring Grand Prix track in OZICAR Formula V. Cam Dance takes the win, and with it, the championship lead. 5.5 second lead, whittled down to only 1.5 by the time the checkered flag came out. And keeping his head cool in the final stint, Kirk Broadhurst saved enough fuel, didn't get penalised through the final chicane, and he grabbed second place. Michael Skurlock in third, and Chris Noble, running out of fuel, gave up second and gets scored in fourth. Then Simon Clayson, pretty quiet race there from 15th on the grid to finish 5th with a good strategy staying out of trouble ahead of Daniel Hedderscheid in 6th. Ryan Howe, the highest placed 2-stopper in 7th. Same for Lee Partridge in 8th. And then Nathan Verney in 9th. Ira Felberg from 30th on the grid finishes in the top 10.
Aaron Freen, after his early spin, manages to get his way back to 11th. Stafford Marsland and Ray Oliver having a close finish for 12th and 13th. Aaron Guintini, Theo Taylor, Max Donnelly, Matthew Harriet, Vic Ben Veltzen in 18th, Sean McKenzie, and Mikey Harland rounding out the top 20.
Then the remainder of our field, Rick Berger, the last car on the lead lap. Mick Taylor 1 lap down, and 2 laps down for Matthew Guintini, Callum Heinrich, Jeremy Bush, Stephen Black, Ash Knowles, Paul Ward, all those drivers persevering to take the checkered flag. And then I think retirements for Matthew Joy and Philip Howe. Stuart Crawford, also a retirement, completing just 3 laps. That's what you want out of enduro, though, in Aussie Car Formula V. Some drivers trying to save fuel to make it on one stop. Some drivers like Ryan Howe going flat chat and taking 2 pit stops, still getting rewarded with 7th place, 1 spot gained on where he qualified. Let's chat to some of our drivers from our podium, though, and as is my tradition, we're going to go to 3rd place right off the bat. That was Michael Skurlock. Well, welcome to the commentary booth. Congratulations on 3rd place in the Enduro. What point from the drop of that green flag was your eyes on the fuel gauge?
First of all, thank you very much. To be honest, I'm not really. I really don't like fuel saving races, so I try to pretend that isn't a thing until it really is a thing. So I the first lap I wanted to stay behind Cam, first couple of laps, and then it's so slow when you're just sitting there that you can't resist just pulling out and just going for it. So I just went, all right, whatever, I'm just going to go in front here and just hammer it and see if I can pull away, which is almost impossible. But yeah, then I started looking at the fuel and I realized, oh, no, this ain't going to work at all. Just had to sag back and just let everyone go in front and then just do the drive and Miss Daisy routine pretty much for the rest of the race.
Big smiles on the helmet that you run in sim. Big smile on your face after tonight's race, going from 2nd on the grid to still grabbing a podium.
Yeah, there's been a few times I wouldn't have mind changing that frown into a smile into a frown. Could have had a frown on my face a couple of times in there, but when I saw Cam go around for an extra lap, I could have had a big frown on there. But because I knew that was it, then I knew there's no way I could push in the second half of the race to catch him because he had that lap of fuel in reserve, you know. So, I mean, it's good fun. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun, mate. That's why I'm here. I enjoy it, and it's just whatever's fun I do.
Now, 2 layouts to the Grand Prix track here, the sort of F1 chicane and the sports car chicane. You and some others looked like that F1 style chicane was a bit of a challenge for these low slung Vs.
Yeah, I've always had a bit of an issue with that corner, to be honest. Some cars you can just throw it over the curbs, and some you have to sort of avoid the curbs at all costs. Like if you're in an F3 or most of those open wheelers. So this thing you could ride the curbs, but I got to slow down a couple of times there. Luckily I didn't lose the draft when I got it, so it didn't really bother me. But yeah, no, I mean, it's hard. Some people got it sussed. Some people love it. I've sort of always had trouble around there, to be honest.
Well, a podium is not a bad result, and of course it's a fair chunk of points when it's the one race format. So overall, consistency is rewarded in Aussie Car, and you've done well for yourself here at the Nurburgring. Anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, appreciate that, mate. Yeah, just thanks to the Locked On lads, Locked On iRacing podcast, the BMX Bandits, you guys for putting on the show there, and Ira for putting on the league. And yeah, I did claw back some points, even that 2 of the big dogs weren't here tonight in Jesus and Chaz, so that makes it a little bit easier.
Well, we'll leave you to celebrate however you feel fit, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you on the grid in a week's time.
All right, thank you, boys. Thank you.
From the 3rd step of the podium to the 2nd step of the podium, Kirk Broadhurst is with Brad Wingard.
Good evening, Kirk. I'll start off with saying very, very well driven tonight. You were in that lead paddle near abouts, and then you managed to get 2 spots in essentially one section of corners coming out of that chicane. Can you run us play through that last chicane on the last lap?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, David. Hi, Brad. What a race. Yeah, I both stints, the first stint and the second stint, just trying to save some fuel. So I was pushing harder, but yeah, Michael was coming at me on that last lap. He'd been doing the same, and I was just trying to keep up with Chris. And yeah, Michael's on the outside, and I didn't know. I assume he's going to kind of come through the chicane side by side with me. So you make some space there, keep nice and far to the left, and you know, I was just I guess not surprised. Yeah, surprised, but not surprised at the same time that Chris ran out of fuel on before that last corner. It was pretty tight. Yeah, I can't believe I came second after all that.
Well, you thoroughly deserved it. You drove a brilliant race, and that fuel number being restricted at 40% of the full tank, obviously it's not a massive tank, but it really threw a lot of drivers. We saw a lot of two-stoppers and a lot of one-stoppers, and obviously Cam going for that 11th lap. Were you dead set on doing the 10th lap from the start, or were you kind of just with those guys and started like following them? Like, was it a on-the-fly decision, or were you pretty much planned for that from the green light?
Yeah, absolutely planned for it. I looked at, what's 40%? It's 8 liters. Geez, that's not much. 0.8 of a liter per lap. If you're pushing, it's a bit more than that. So you're not going to get those 10 laps if you're pushing. So conserve from the very beginning. Hang back. You want to not lose touch, but you don't want to be so close that you're battling and wasting time. I thought, well, I hope these guys aren't all going to go to the 10th lap. But then after a couple of laps, you could see, well, we're a second slower than we could be. So everyone had the same idea, and I was just amazed that Cam managed to squeeze another lap out, which is just very impressive. But yeah, it was absolutely strategy the whole time. And I thought, save some fuel in the beginning, and then that leaves you a bit more at the end. And hopefully other people are, as we saw with Chris, kind of having to make those decisions under duress, whereas I had, a reasonable amount in my pocket to just push as hard as I wanted in the last few laps of the stint.
Awesome. Next week we do head to Zolder. It's one of my favorite tracks in Europe. How are you envisioning that racing will go? Obviously, doesn't get a lot of love on the iRacing platform, not as much as it should. So, what are your thoughts on the Zolder layout and taking these cars there?
I don't even think I've ever seen a diagram of the track. I don't own it, haven't driven it, so I'm going to have to figure that out pretty quick. It's the practice is everything. I did do more practice this week than I've been doing, which makes a huge difference. But yeah, I don't know much about it, so we better get started.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll love it because I love the flow of the track and it's got a lot of history, so I'm sure you'll love it too. Anyone you'd like to thank tonight?
Yeah, my wife and kids, of course. Take care of me, and thank my dad for helping me remove a felled tree today, which was a lot of fun. So I've got a couple blisters on the hands from cutting off branches and so forth. So thanks, Dad, for helping out. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we hope to see you next week and a brand new track for you, and we look forward to see what you can produce next week at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, mate. See you then.
Kidoke. Well, we've had third on the podium. We've had second on the podium. So, of course, it's only right to bring in the winner here at the Nurburgring GP in OZICAR Formula Vee. Cam Dance, you also take the championship lead. You must be well pleased with yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, full max points and double points as well, so that helps us massively in the championship hunt. I mean, unfortunately, didn't quite expect to take the lead as I did with the fact that Joseph didn't show up, but it is what it is, unfortunately, and just the way it has fallen into my lap, more or less.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, only driver to do 11 laps to the stint, had quite a few of those other drivers in that lead pack scratching their heads. I mean, don't tell us any secrets, but tell us a secret.
I don't know. Just a bit of clutch, bit of lifting off, bit of draft. I don't know. That sort of normal thing that you do when you're fuel saving. Yeah, these cars are actually really, really hard to fuel save in anyway. So what I was saving wasn't necessarily large amounts. I mean, I was only saving probably 1.1 of a litre at most on each lap, so it wasn't massive amounts that I was more or less saving over the course of the stint, but that seemed to add up enough to be able to run that extra lap, which helped in the end.
Volkswagen should have never developed diesel engines. They should have just sent everyone to the Cam Dance School of Economy Driving. The world would be a lot cleaner. But I mean, here, the Nurburgring Grand Prix layout, another full F1 size track for these diminutive Vs. Do you feel like you had a lot of space?
Yeah, plenty of space. The main problem was just trying to get a bit of a breakaway going, or having some sort of pace differential be in our favour. Unfortunately, these tracks don't help because of the fact that it's a Grand Prix track. But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, it is what it is. Congratulations to you once again. I'll give you the space to say anything you want to say. Thank anyone you want to thank. After 50 minutes, you are the winner.
Yeah. First of all, shout out to the boys at Fitsline Motorsport as always, and then obviously our partners TechSense Sensors, Rinva Harnesses, Demon Tweaks, Fight CRC, Sim3D, Majors Garage, you guys for the awesome broadcast, I for the awesome series, all the boys for the awesome racing, and yeah, see what happens at Zolder.
You got faster towards the end there, like you're reading the health advice at the end of an ad for prescription medication in the US or something. But good to have you once again, Cam, and you will be very, very happy and celebrating, I'm sure. From Nurburgring, we don't have to go too far to get to Circuit Zolder, another track that has, of course, hosted Formula One in its history, but a little shorter on the straights, a little tighter through the corners, and slightly taller curbs all around. That is going to be very, very interesting. You can look forward to that next week on SimSpeed TV. That's all from us tonight here from the Nurburgring. I've been David Haynes, Brad Wingard with me, Jay Kennedy with the cameras and the production. What another awesome Aussie car enduro we have been treated to tonight. Make sure you're following SimSpeed TV on all of our platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, and on Twitter. And of course, I've got to extend, finally, my thanks to the Aussie car supporters and sponsors: Simfinity, Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, 24/7 Race Control, and the Locked On iRacing podcast. This broadcast in this league not possible without them. See you tomorrow night for Aussie Car Skip Barber. See you in a week for the next round and the final round of Aussie Car Formula V. Good night.